Well, now we're going to turn to one of our most timely environmental issues. It really affects all of Pennsylvania, and this is the Marcellus Shale natural gas drilling sites throughout the state. But we're going to talk about one area of the state. In addition to the private properties that are currently being drilled on, there are state forest lands that are now being leased out to these natural gas operators to be drilled on. And this is where you come in with your opinion on keeping this drilling environmentally friendly and environmentally green here in Pennsylvania.
Right. Yeah, absolutely, Stephanie. Look, first I'd like to say that I think that the Marcellus Shale natural gas drilling is something that can be done in an environmentally responsible way. And right now, the State Department of Environmental Protection is working on new regulations that controls the amount of what's called total suspended solids coming out of the water that's taken out of these wells after the drilling is done. And those are good regulations, and I think once they're in place, we're going to be in a much better position to protect the environment. But there is a large amount of state forest land that was set aside over 100 years ago for conservation reasons. Governor Pinchot, who was one of the original conservationists at that time, along with Teddy Roosevelt, was a leader in that movement to set that land aside. And it was set aside to be conserved, to be enjoyed by all the people of Pennsylvania, not to be drilled upon. And there are already a number of leases that have been entered into with the state to drill upon state land. And over the next 20 years, that land is going to be drilled upon, and about 25,000 acres of that land will be forever changed from state forests to something else as a consequence of that drilling. And many of us who are in the so-called Green Dog caucus here in the legislature believe that it's time to say no more drilling in the state forests. That's enough. There are hundreds of thousands of acres of private property in the Marcellus Shale formation that can be drilled in a responsible way, and that's where the focus ought to be.
Now, where is the money currently going to now that the state receives from the leases that is now being drilled upon?
Right. That money is going to the general fund, and it's helping us balance the budget. Under the budget agreement from last October, there was $60 million that was targeted to be raised from the leasing. In fact, the lease amounts came in at double what was projected. So about $128 million have come in to the general fund. And so we're actually in a bit ahead of where we ought to be. And that revenue is important. But many of us feel that if we're looking to generate revenue from natural gas leasing, it ought to be in the form of a gas severance tax on the drilling companies. This is something that every other state that has a major natural gas formation like the Marcellus Shale already does. Pennsylvania is the only state that does not. And we think that that will be important revenue not only for the state coffers, but just as importantly for the areas where the drilling is taking place. Those municipalities where that's happening need the money to be able to remediate the land, to clean it up, and bring it back to hopefully it's close to its natural state after the drilling is done.
Sure. So the natural gas formation, the Marcellus Shale formation, is such a new industry in Pennsylvania, so to speak. So there's a lot more to learn on it. It seems like there's a lot more to learn even on the environmental side, the effects it could have on it. And it's still a work in progress, would you say?
Yeah, I mean, it is. And there are a number of issues that we have to be concerned about. As I said before, there's the issue of the water coming out of the drilling, and ultimately what is that like, and is it being treated in a way that's consistent with protecting the environment? There's also the issue of the water that's being used initially. Where is that coming from? Because in the past there have been instances where water will be taken from a local stream, and they need so much water to do this process that the stream then runs dry, and obviously that's not something we want to see either.
Okay, well, and again, in 2009, as part of the 2009-2010 state budget, this is part of the way to balance it by leasing the state forest to this natural gas drilling.
Well, that's something that actually I would oppose, that, any further leasing. In the current budget, there has already been 30,000 acres leased. We think that's enough. We don't need to go any further because we've already exceeded the revenue projections for this fiscal year.
So that was as part of the 2009-2010 budget, but
Right.
there's more to come on the Marcellus Shale drilling issue in this year and years to come.
Exactly.
Like.
Yeah.
Okay,
Good.
we'll be right back.
Thanks.